Hi, so in this session we are going to go over JavaScript syntax, and this is going to be more of a theoretical session, so I would advise you to go over it at your own pace and make sure you understand the terminologies that we are going through. Let's get started. What is a syntax, you may ask? A syntax is nothing but a set of rules on how JavaScript programs are constructed. Now, what is a computer program? A computer program is a list of instructions to be executed by the computer. Again, what is the list of instructions? It is nothing but statements. In a programming language, these program instructions are called statements. So you can relate it to your instruction manual for anything that you buy. These are nothing but English statements that we understand, and these are instructions for us. Similarly, for JavaScript programming language, there are statements which the compiler understands. Now, what is the importance of semicolon in JavaScript? JavaScript is a programming language, and statements in JavaScript are separated by a semicolon. So for instance, variable x is equal to 5 semicolon is one statement. Similarly, variable y is equal to 6 is another statement. Now you note that there is a semicolon at the end of both the statements. Just like in our English, we use a full stop or a period to indicate an end of sentence. Similarly, in JavaScript, we use a semicolon. What is a statement composed of? Well, there are multiple things that become a part of a statement for a programming language. So the first one is values, which means there are certain values that will be there in the statement. The next is operators. The other one is an expression. The next is keywords. And last but not the least is comments. We will be going over each and every item in detail. What are values? Well, the JavaScript syntax defines two types of values. One is fixed values, which is nothing but literals. The next is a variable value, which is nothing but variables. So a fixed value or a literal will not change. A variable value has a tendency to change. So what are literals? Now, the most important rules for writing fixed values are numbers are written with or without the decimal point. So for example, 10.38 is one of the literal of type number. Similarly, 1001 is a number, and it's also a literal. Its value cannot change. Now, the most important rule for writing fixed values, which is for the strings, are that text written within a double quote or a single quote. So John Doe, you can see I have it starting with a double quote and ending with a double quote. I can also have John Doe as a single quote or a single quote. This indicates to JavaScript that this is a string literal. Variables. So in programming language, variables are used to store data values. JavaScript uses the var keyword, var keyword, to declare variables, which means just like you say I'm a boy or I'm a girl. Similarly, a variable is indicated using a var keyword. An equal sign is used to assign values to the variables. So for example, var x, this is nothing but a declaration, and x equals to 6 is nothing but an assignment. So you saw we used the keyword var to declare the variable x, and we used an equal to sign to assign it a value of 6. Now, operators. So JavaScript uses an assignment operator to assign values to variables. We just recently saw that variable x is equal to 5. So here equal to is the assignment operator. Similarly, variable y is equal to 6 is another operator. Now, we also have arithmetic operators just like we have it in mathematics. Now, we already saw that we assigned values. We can also compute values using these arithmetic variables. For instance, 5 plus 6 into 10 is nothing but 110. So this In this example, you can see that I have used two arithmetic operators, which is a positive sign and a multiplication sign. Similarly, 2 plus 8 into 10 will give you 100. So these are arithmetic operators that are used to compute values. What are expressions? An expression is a combination of values, variables, and operators. So in the previous example, we saw 5 plus 6 into 10 will result into 110. So this is nothing but an expression. It has values and it has operators. So value 5, 6 and 10 are numeric values, and positive sign and multiplication are the operators. Similarly, 2 plus 8 into 10, 100. Now, expressions can be written along with variable values as well. So for instance, we have variable x is equal to 5 and we do x into 10, which is x multiplied by 10, you get the output as 50. So you see in this example, we used a variable and an operator and also a value 10 to compute the final result. The values can be of various types, such as numbers and strings. For example, John plus space plus dough. These are three different string values, and we can combine them using the plus sign, just the way we used it to add values, and the output would be John Doe. The next thing is the keywords. So JavaScript keywords are used to identify actions to be performed. So for example, we have been using the var keyword. So what does var keyword do? The var keyword tells the browser to create a new variable. So var x is equal to 5 plus 6 and var y is equal to x into 10 will indicate the browser that I need to create two variables x and y. And of course, there is an expression along with it that will be computed to assign it a value. What are comments? Not all JavaScript statements are executed. Codes after the double slash, which is // or between a slash asterisk and an asterisk slash is treated as a comment. Comments are ignored and will not be executed. You can consider comments to be more of an information for the person who's reading the code or who's writing the code. So let's say as a developer, you write a piece of logic and you want to elaborate on what that logic does in English, you usually put some kind of a comment or an indication. The code will be compiled and run correctly, but the comments will not be executed. So let's take an example. Variable x is equal to 5 // and whatever comes after that slash will not be executed. But variable x is equal to 5 will be assigned a value of 5. Similarly, if I have a variable x is equal to 6 after the double slash, there will be no variable created and it will not be executed. So the entire line will be considered as a comment. What are identifiers? Identifiers are names. So just like I have a name Abhay, that's an identifier that identifies me. In JavaScript, identifiers are used to name variables. And of course, keywords, functions, and labels, which we will cover later on. But let's stick to variables for now. Now, the rules for legal names are much the same in most programming languages. In JavaScript, the first character must be a letter, an underscore, or a $sign. Subsequent characters can be letters, digits, underscores, or $sign. Note: numbers are not allowed as the first character. This way, JavaScript can easily distinguish identifiers from numbers. JavaScript is case sensitive. And what do I mean by case sensitive? So, for example, you see last name and last name are two different variables. Last name, which has an uppercase N, and last name, which has a lowercase n, are considered different. So, for example, if my variable statement or an expression is variable last n uppercase name is equal to Doe and variable last name is equal to Abhay. These are two different variables that will be created and they can be used. Now, what is camelcase? Now, historically programmers have been using three different ways of joining multiple words when they form an identifier. The first one is hyphens. So let's say, for example, I have first name. So I'll have a first hyphen name as a variable or an identifier name. Last hyphen name. But the problem is hyphens are not allowed in JavaScript. It is reserved for subtraction. Underscore. The first underscore name, last underscore name is another way of defining an identifier or a variable, which is an acceptable approach. But there's a third approach, which is camelcase. Now, for instance, first name, last name. You see, the first letter of each word is in uppercase, whereas the subsequent letters are in lowercase. Can you relate it to a camel? You can see this. So the camel case is derived pretty much based on the humps of the camel, and that's how the nomenclature came into existence. JavaScript programmers tend to use camel case that starts with a lowercase letter. So whenever we define a variable, we usually start with the first word's first letter to be a lowercase, and the subsequent letters can follow the camel case. So you can see the example: first name, last name. So that's how we define our variables. So in this session, there was a lot of theory and a lot of terminology that was thrown in. I would hope that you can go through this once again and make sure you understand them. Of course, we will go over it when we do the practicals.